All right, well, here is the 75-gallon SPS tank. This tank is a little over 5 years old, and just like any other tank, it started off with little bitty frags, and it grew out over time. The tank itself I got from PetSmart. It's a Marineland, just a standard Marineland 75-gallon aquarium. Came with the stand. I had those little knobs there. I think at the time I paid something like 300 bucks for it. This was, 5 or 6 years ago. Uh, and then I just kind of added to it over time. I put an overflow in the back. I drilled the tank for that and also for the return. And that was very nerve-wracking doing that, drilling the tank. Especially you buy a new aquarium and you spend all that money. Some people spend a lot more. And, you go to drill it, and it was my first time doing it. But it worked out pretty good. Hey Reefers, if you're enjoying the channel, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. This is the free and easy way to show your support, and I really appreciate it. And as you can tell, this is not like, say, an Instagram tank where all the glass is clean and scraped. It's just a challenge just to keep the coral line off. But I got some help with any little algae that pops up. There's some urchins there, and they keep it pretty clean. I usually have a few more in here, but they're in other tanks right now helping those tanks out. But yeah, just to keep scraping the glass off, that's just a lot of time and effort. And honestly, when I reach in this tank, I break a lot of pieces off that I don't want to do that. So I just clean where it's necessary, like the front panel here. And one little spot where I like to take little pictures from right here. There you go. You can kind of see, like, this is one of my favorite angles. So I keep this little piece of the glass clean there. That's the latest test results. I got to retest my phosphate. I just added some. There's the nitrates at 28, and the phosphate was testing at 0.01, but like I said, I just added some. I got a problem with phosphate being too low, and nitrates are always elevated, but it doesn't seem to hurt the coral. I do notice with when I keep the phosphates up, it helps with the color of the acropora. So for the lights, I have 4 Kessel A360X lights, and they are on a Reef Bright XHO fixture for fill. I started off with just black box lights, and then I upgraded to the Kessels, and they were on goosenecks, and those worked for a while until the coral grew out in the colonies that you see here, and it was creating a lot of shading because those Kessels are like little street lamps, so they don't really have a wide angle of coverage. It kind of just, goes off diagonally like that. So I used this Reef Bright fixture here to kind of fill in, and that helped out a lot. That comes on around noon to 6, and then the other lights come on from 9 to 9:30, and they ramp up and down. And I actually have a problem with this light right now. It's about 4 years old, but the violet spectrum doesn't work on it anymore, which isn't a huge deal. It's just for nighttime I notice it because I like the violet at night just to make all the colors pop out. But during the day, this is what the tank looks like. It's not royal blue, but it's like a mixture. I like this for growth, and it's not really too bad to look at either. So let's have a look at the coral. We'll start over here with this acropora here. This is green slimer acropora. I can't remember how to pronounce it. It's acropora youngi, I believe, or something like that. But I've had this since I've had the tank. It's one of my original frags. I got it at a frag swap, and this was one of the lucky few to make it at the time. Because when I got this tank, I bought a whole bunch of frags at a frag swap. I was all excited, and I lost more than half of them. But this is one of the lucky ones to make it. In the back there is some stylophora, green stylophora. I actually try to actively remove that from the tank because it's so fast growing. It just grows over the acropora. So I believe I got that from a buddy. A lot of these corals in here I actually got from a buddy at the time who's since gotten out of the hobby. But actually I had 2 buddies that sold me coral when I was starting this tank. So right here is some Leptocerus. I'm not too hip to a lot of these coral names. I'm sure this has some kind of fancy name, but I got that from a buddy too. I paid like, I don't know, 20 bucks for the frag, and it's doing great. As you can see, it's growing over this Montipora here. I believe that's Mind Trick Montipora. I also got that from the same buddy, same thing. Like a lot of these corals in here, I paid like 20 bucks for, $20, $30, except for this one right here. I think I paid $100 for the frags. That's the Walt Disney Acropora, and it's a little more desirable. And after I was comfortable, after a few years, I decided to try that. But I started off with these beginner, if you will, beginner SPS anyway, after I was in reefing for a couple of years. That's some Pasillipora there. That's actually a little piece that kind of just comes off of colonies like this. And they just find little homes. I had some on the glass. There's a little bit back there. And they just kind of go everywhere a little bit. This one's not as bad as what I read. So it's actually manageable. I'll let it grow out. And if it becomes a hassle, I'll go ahead and frag it. But that one, same thing. I got cheap from a frag swap. I think that was one of my originals as well. So that and the green slimer were two of the lucky few. This Acropora here, I bought from a local reefer. I bought like a whole bunch of wild Acropora colonies, and this was the only one to make it. I actually had to frag it down. It wasn't this size at all. I mean, I was down to like one little frag from a whole colony, and then it actually started coming back. That's a piece of this colony over here. That's just to show you how much it grows. And over here, it's not as colorful because it's not getting as much light as it is over here in the center of the tank, directly underneath that kessel there. So that one's really coloring up too. Here is some green pavona or cactus coral. This is a good beginner SPS coral. You know, if you've been in reefing for like a year or so, 8 months, it's something to try out just with an established tank. But that's a good coral to have too. And as you can see, it'll grow over Montipora, so you got to be careful where you put it. It's finally touching. I called this out, I don't know how many months ago, but it's finally touching the Leptocerus there. And I believe they're just going to have a stalemate, but we'll see who wins, if anybody. And moving along, there is some 24K Leptocerus there, and that is growing everywhere. You can see there's some there. There's some over here, and that's a really beautiful coral. I like that color. And you can tell it just kind of stands out in the tank. And it's really nice. And I got that from a buddy too. That was like one of those little $20 frags. Down here is Castaway Montipora. It's very similar to the Jedi Mind Trick. It might even be the same species. This one grows pretty quick though once it's established. This started off as a little sliver a few years ago. And I was surprised that it's actually growing over the Pavona here. And it's going to challenge this Leptocerus. However, I think the Leptocerus will win against the Montipora. But I was surprised that it was growing over the Pavona because the Pavona is pretty aggressive. Moving along up here, I used to have, I'll try to zoom in on it. There's a little piece left. I used to have a nice, beautiful colony of solar flare Acropora up there. It was as big as both my hands, just about. You can kind of see it right there in the center of the screen. That's all that's left of it. It just stopped extending its polyps, and then it just started doing the STN, and gradually the whole thing died out on me. I only got like a little frag in my frag tank, and it still don't have the polyps out yet, but it's alive, luckily. So I replaced it with this guy here, which is a pretty cool acro. It's just like a green and a purple one, but it looks more like a Acropora Miliopora. You see those long polyps, and that's what I really like. I like those long polyps on the Acropora. And coming over here, this is what I call my Acropora alley, if you will. There's just some miscellaneous Acropora that I got from friends. This one here was a wild frag, I guess. It's just a no-name Acropora. And it's always been sort of brown and green, so I might trim a piece and put it in the frag tank where it's a lot more light. It's only like 150 par right there. And see what it turns into eventually. See if it colors up or what happens to it. But I enjoy it there too. And it got a whole bunch of little pieces of acro growing back there. I forgot the name of that, but those are really cool too. It just kind of fills it in and adds to the reef. Over here, there's some Montipora capricornus. A lot of people are familiar with these. They build out in little ledges there, and they come in a variety of colors. I just have the green and the orange. I got those both from a reefing buddy. Actually, he just reached in the tank and just snapped one off and put it in a little container for me. He's like, here you go. This stuff grows so good. And he was right. This stuff grows really good. You just want to pay attention to where you put it because As you can see, it makes shade. The fish enjoy it a lot. That's a lemon damsel. They really like it. But if you have a coral underneath there that needs light, they're not going to like being under that. So you got to be careful. There is some Montipora digitata. That's the German blue. The reason why they call it German blue, I'll see if I can zoom in on that. Focus, is because the polyps are blue in bright light. Otherwise, it looks kind of purple. But that's why it's called German blue digitata. And some are bluer than others. But it keeps breaching the water in there. That's cool. Sometimes I'll accidentally knock off that chunk there, and I'll just put it back there, but it'll be lower, and it just keeps growing up towards the light, or towards the surface of the water there. It's because it wants to reach the light more, and it just looks really cool. There's some more Pasillipora. Yeah, so that stuff just kind of spreads. When I put it in a tank, I didn't put it in any of these spots that you see it here. That's just where it ended up. I put it in one spot and it died off. It did a polyp bailout and I thought it was gone. And then I started seeing little green things growing. And I'm like, oh, cool, it came back. Well, you just got to watch it. It likes to pop up in certain spots, and some are more aggressive than others in that regard. And down here, I put that in there about 6 to 8 months ago just to fill in. That's a little Frankenstein Leptocerus. And right here, I tried to put, this used to be a nice, beautiful colony. My fish will get out of the way. All around here was a Montipora setosa. And it all died off except for a few little pieces. So luckily, when that was still good, I put some over here just to kind of fill in because this wasn't all full like it is now. And this stuff's doing good over here. So luckily, I still had some. So I just retook some from here and put it back to where it originally came from. And hopefully, I got some pieces in the back there too. You can kind of see if my fish will get out of the way. Hopefully those will take off and grow back out because that was a cool coral. I really enjoyed it. And it was real bright and vivid on this side of the tank. It was like as orange as that. And I just really enjoyed it. So I hope that this will continue to grow out. It's a little bit higher of flow right there. That's why that one side has died off on that, but it's cool on the back side. So hopefully it'll just attach to the rock and grow where it wants to. That's been there for about maybe 6 months. So we'll see what happens. In the back there, a long time ago, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I know that's not that long, but I got some of this Hollywood Stunner Chalice, and I didn't have a frag tank just yet that was established. And I put it in here just for safekeeping. It was a free coral. I was like, cool, I like it. Well, it attached to the rock. So, and I believe that's an LPS, even though it's got tiny little polyps and it looks like an SPS, but it's an aggressive coral. So I just take chunks of that out and put it in my frag tank, and I keep, keeping it trimmed down so it don't harm the other corals around it. But that's the only odd one in the tank there. That's pretty much all the coral. I'll show you a top view too. The top view looks really cool. All right, I just turned off the flow. Here is the top of the tank. And you can see that's definitely breaching the water. The water level is going to go down a little bit. But look at that. There's also one back there that I forgot about. That is a pink Floyd Acropora colony right there. That's been a super slow grower with this Disney. That's about 3.5 years old, and that's all it's grown, but it's a really bright and vivid coral, and I really like it. So I'm happy to see that it's actually this year it's starting to grow new nubs like that. And oops, there's the Disney colonies. They kind of greened out a little bit on me compared to a couple weeks ago. I think because the phosphates were bottoming out, but I'll get them back up. They're not too bad, but they have more pinks and stuff like that right there on them a few weeks ago. So I'll make sure I take care of that. I think the phosphates are the trick to that. That one back there is doing really good. But this is the top view, and I don't look at it enough from here because I think this is the best view. And I need to take my lids off more often, take some pictures and stuff. And in the back, I got a little bit of room. I mean, there's a rock right there. I could put more coral on if I wanted to, which brings me to another thing with the flow. I purposefully didn't put my rock all the way in the back. See that? There's a gap in between the glass and the rock, and I didn't glue the rock either. I just rolled the dice, and luckily it worked out, but I just stacked the rock. I mean, I made sure it was secure by stacking it. I gave it a little wobble, but over time the coral became the glue. And so the way my flow is set up with these J-bolt gyres that need to be cleaned again is that one blows the flow all back here. And then this one in the front blows it back here. So it kind of goes, in a circular motion. And then I got a little cross flow with this one here. And I might add another one of those over here too. But that's what I got for the flow of the tank. And it works really well. Like I look in the polyps in the middle here, and they move pretty good with the flow. So I know that it's not just kind of, bypassing the coral. It's actually doing something. It's just indirect flow, and that's what you want, along with your lighting. They kind of tie together with the lighting. And another cool thing with all my tanks, except for Puffy's tank, I have all this on the Apex, but I also have it on the Echo Dot, and everything is hands-free. So when I want to turn the tank back on, I just say, Alexa, turn on tank 1.
I've stopped feed cycle C.
And now I have it on a feed cycle, and now it's going to turn the tank back on, as you can see there. So that way, when I got my hands full and I'm working on the tank, I just do voice commands, and it takes care of that for me. Same thing with feeding too. And this will be the spot where I'll put up the parameters for the tank in case you're curious about lighting and alkalinity and things like that. I'll put that up here to show you how I run this tank. Alkalinity's usually around 8.5. Calcium, I try to keep around 400 because I noticed that if I go higher than 400, I get a lot of precipitation when the doser kicks in. So I keep my calcium a little bit lower. And then the magnesium, I try to keep it around 1350. All right, so let's have a look under the stand here. So as you can see, like I said, this is not like an Instagram tank where, you got the fancy show sump and everything. I do everything as cheap as possible with a few exceptions I'll save up my money for. But starting with the sump, it's just a 29-gallon Aqueon aquarium. I went to Petco's, I think it was like a half off sale at the time. That like $1 a gallon or whatever. And I got a 29-gallon aquarium, and that's my sump. Got a little sock holder there. So I got 2 of my returns in the sock, and in the back is my emergency drain. So if for some reason these two get plugged up, that emergency drain is going to make a lot of noise and alert me that there's a problem. So that's why it's back there separate. I see I got to clean my skimmer. I got to do a lot of cleaning today. Right now, the Fuge light is off. But as far as my refugium goes, I just got a little basket of Chaeto and some other algae there. It helps, but it doesn't take the nitrates down as far as I'd like. I'm actually working on that right now, trying to play with different things to get them down. I don't want to really go with an algae reactor unless I have to, but I'll see what happens. The sump is pretty dirty. I got to clean it. There's some detritus and stuff in there. I do have a UV on this tank, and I do run it. I run it 24 hours a day. That's just because in the past I've had issues with dino and some algae. So just as a precaution, I run it. It doesn't hurt anything to run it other than it just increases the water temperature a little bit. So I just run it. My return pump is just, can't really see it. It's just one of those Amazon pumps. I think it's called like an Orlushy. I paid like $90 for it. And I just plumbed it in and it works great. I do have, like I said, the Neptune Apex system. There's my doser. I dose 2-part on this tank. And I can show you what I dose over here. Get my stuff out of the way. I use the Seachem Reef Fusion 1 and 2. No, I don't get it for free, and I do pay for it. I mean, I get a little bit off than retail, but that's what I use to dose for 2-part, and it works really well. The Reef Fusion 1 has the calcium and the magnesium in it, along with a few other trace elements, and then this one is for the alkalinity. And it's a really, really concentrated mixture. I tried to duplicate it, and I couldn't. with what I had. So I just pony up and pay for it. It's worth it. It keeps my tank stable. So I just go along with it. It lasts for a few months. There's my dosing containers down there. I just got those at the dollar store. Just cheapy little, I think it's $1.25 now. Drill a little hole, pop my tubing in there, and there we go for my 2-part. For testing, I do have the Neptune Trident. This is the 3D printed mini that I made. I didn't design it, but I did print it out. I did design this cover here, though, for the reagents, because that's just the print there, and it seemed kind of unfinished. So I went ahead and designed and made a little cover for it like that. And then I just used a little pop bottle as my waste container for that. That's the version 1 Trident. The second one I'm not interested in because I only test nitrate and phosphate once a week, and I don't need to test it once a day. For top off, again, I don't go real expensive on things if I don't have to. I go with function over form if I can. This is just a bucket of water, which I need to add some to. Then I just got a little Jabo doser right there, which I'm only using the 1 channel just to top off. So that just comes over here in the sump and just keeps my sump at level. So that's about it. Not a lot of frills back here. And that's a Simplicity 120 skimmer, by the way, that I got to clean there. That's a really good skimmer. It does a really good job. I have one in every one of my tanks. I have 5 of them. So and I don't get them for free. Like I said, I pay for all my stuff. So I try to go cheap where I can and go from there. And that's my sump. And like I said, not a lot of frills, but it works well for this tank here. Well, I hope you enjoyed this closer look at the SPS tank. My goal is to make this achievable for you, and it really isn't as hard as you think. I'm Reefer Matt. Thank you for watching, and happy reefing.